Hello, BookTube. Happy Garbaugust to everybody. This is August the 1st. This is the start of BookTube's trashiest event, created by Ollie at Criminali, where we all read garbage for the month of August, and I hope do a lot of talking to each other about it. Uh, and by sheer coincidence, Garbaugust kicks off this year on Trash Day here in my neighborhood. I'm sure that you also have a trash day in your neighborhood. Trash day is when the garbage is picked up by the municipal workers who do that for a living. Hard workers, well compensated, but often invisible on the street, and often presented with impossible tasks. Some people do not care about the shape of the garbage they haul to the curb. They don't think that someone has to handle this. Someone has to get this into the truck. And here in my neighborhood, the trash is split into two kinds. There's recycling, and then there's just everything else. But there's always a third kind, right? There's the big trash bin that is all the refuge of the household for that week. And then there's the smaller bin that is recycling, all the stuff that can theoretically go to your local recycling plant and be reclaimed. I've read a lot of articles on that. They are pretty depressing. Not a lot of reclaiming goes on, usually, at those plants. But there's always a third kind of trash on trash day. Because people know that if they're clearing out a basement or an attic or an empty room or a vacated apartment, that's the day when they're going to want to haul all that stuff onto the sidewalk and it's going to magically go away. The trash collectors will pick it up. They will pick up all of that stuff. That's when you do that. With a few exceptions. Very large items, probably not. Items that may be hazardous, I'm pretty sure that it's really not that it's really not acceptable to bring, for instance, computers. And just put them out in the trash. I'm pretty sure that they get toxic if they're disposed of poorly. Of course, that doesn't stop people from putting gigantic plasma screen TVs out on the sidewalk. I would think they would be just as toxic, or more so. But like everybody else, I would like to think, like everybody else, I love Trash Day for that reason. I love it for that reason. Because when you are walking around in all of the neighborhoods, which if you have a dog, you're going to do that. You're going to walk around in all the neighborhoods. You're going to do it at a leisurely pace. Not quite as leisurely for me nowadays as it once was, but still, we bustle instead of trudging along. But you still see everything. And I've done that forever. And the reason that I love doing that on Trash Day is because of an age-old saw, an age-old adage that one man's trash is another man's treasure. The most generous interpretation of that adage is the one that I have lived with, and the fruits of which you can see if you come to this room here at Hyde Cottage. You can look around and see the fruits of that adage, which is that person X will throw away stuff that person Y might want, provided it's in good shape and works, isn't obviously defective in any way. I'll get back to that. That has happened to me a million times, where I have been walking dogs down a sidewalk on Trash Day, and someone has put on the sidewalk a perfectly good bookcase. I think I probably have 20 bookcases here, maybe 30. I don't think I've paid for more than 2 of them. All the others were hauled out of the trash, were brought home from the sidewalk. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, I spot them near the house and they are small enough so that I can just hoist them on a shoulder and keep the dog walk going. Other times I walk the dog, I mark the location, I walk the dog, and then I go back and snag the thing. That's also true for lots of other things. Lots and lots of other things. One time, decades ago, somebody put out on the sidewalk, on the curb, a box full of cast iron skillets. Nothing wrong with them. They weren't rusted or anything. The person just didn't want them. I don't want to carry them around. I'm not even aware of the ability to sell them. I just want to get rid of them. That's all. That's the literal unburdening feeling of Trash Day, is that you can haul this stuff to the sidewalk and it feels like you've just magically made it disappear. I grabbed a couple of the bigger ones of those, used them for years. Often I am envious on Trash Day. Often I will be walking down the street and I will see an easy chair, a small easy chair, or a director's chair, a canvas-back director's chair, or something, maybe a standing mirror, one of the spinning kinds of a standing mirror, something, in other words, that I really want, but that I'm not going to carry. I couldn't carry it even if I didn't have a dog with me. So I just have to get wistful. I have to look at them and say, somebody will come by and get that, or it'll just be trash. Who knows how many metric tons of perfectly usable stuff is ground up and thrown into landfills every day in the United States alone, much less other countries. So I love Trash Day, and I've loved it for a long time. And usually when I am grabbing something on Trash Day, Trash Day is the one day of your life where you must not be self-conscious about grabbing something out of trash. When I've been doing that, I have always repeated that old adage that one man's trash is another man's treasure. But years and years and years ago, I used to go not to my local Goodwill. Goodwill here in this part of the country is a charity shop. It's a non-profit charity shop organization. They put out they have charity storefronts. And they always have book sections, but they have everything else as well. A really big, bustling, well-stocked Goodwill is a wonderland of things to do. You can find a ton of stuff there. And there's a big Goodwill here in Boston. There are a bunch of them here in Boston, but there's a big one, and it's good. It's good to visit. And for a brief time, it was more or less on my route. It was down the street from a medical center that was more or less on my route. But I didn't go for that big Goodwill. I went for the warehouse next door. A couple of you have actually been here, and I've actually brought you to that warehouse. There's a Goodwill sorting outlet warehouse next to that big Goodwill. The big Goodwill is normal. It has clothes arranged by size. It has paintings on shelves. It has all the furniture together. It has all the books together. The warehouse is not. The warehouse has nothing sorted and is therefore commensurately cheaper because you're getting the stuff before anyone they're paying had to sort it. And it's a free-for-all. That warehouse is a free-for-all. You will never see humanity in more degraded circumstances than you will the people in that warehouse. It really is soiling to go there. I experienced that. I knew that the first time I went there, but the first time I went there, over a decade ago, the books, which were piled in canvas bins, so you literally had to dig through them, the books were $5 for $1. Regardless of shape, regardless of size, regardless of length, regardless of hardcover or paperback, just $5 for $1. And that tempted me. I think any book person would be tempted. I knew that. So every once in a while I would gird my loins and go to the warehouse in order to dig through the books that were $5 for $1. I found a lot of books that way. I had a lot of good shopping. Of course, you always forget. I always forgot in those years. I had to get it all the way back here. But while I was there digging through those books, I saw what the rest of the warehouse was like. And it wasn't a pretty sight. There were gigantic bins full of discarded household items and ancillary things of all kinds that had people swarming all over them. There were, when a new bin of used shoes came out, people would literally fall on it like zoo animals on a hay shipment. It was horrifying to watch. It really was. There's no other word for it. It was horrifying to watch. And also, it was a locus where people had absolutely no self-control. I would get in line to pay for my $5 for $1 books, and in front of me and behind me would be middle-aged women with shopping carts piled high with stuff. So when they got to the register, even at Goodwill outlet prices, they were still going to pay $300, $400, sometimes $500 for stuff they don't need, and with money that they absolutely do not have. In other words, with the shoe melee and also with the shopping carts, I was seeing people who just weren't exercising any self-control at all over what they were doing. Same thing with those miscellaneous household bins. I would see people pull out, an ornate lamp. An ornate lamp with a really intricately carved scene on the base of the lamp, and then the wire that holds the bulb. And I would look at it, and I would see that the wire that holds the bulb was empty. It didn't have a bulb in it, of course, but it also didn't have a lampshade. The lampshade was long since gone. And the ceramic carving for the base was broken. It wasn't just chipped or discolored, it was broken. And people would take it anyway. Caught up in this miasma of I'm just shopping for stuff. They would take it anyway. I saw from those shoe bins, I saw some of those crazed customers actually buy one shoe. So they were in the melee. They found one shoe they kind of sort of liked. They didn't find the other shoe in the pair. They bought it anyway. They bought it anyway. The Goodwill warehouse proved to me that the old adage, one man's trash is another man's treasure, is not necessarily true. Some trash is just trash. And people might buy it anyway, but it is just objectively trash. And I was thinking about that here on Trash Day, and that naturally led me to the Jesuitical lecture that I like to read to you at the beginning of every Garbaugust. You were wondering where I was going to get back to Garbaugust, weren't you? There's a Jesuitical lecture that I like to give you at the beginning of every Garbaugust. I am a co-host for reasons that pass understanding. I have no idea why Ollie has not purged the roles, but I like to start every Garbaugust by gently countering some of the characterizations of the very subject of this month-long joyful reading event, which is trash. Garbage. Books that are garbage. Because way too often in the context of Garbaugust, I hear what I have often heard in the context of books just in general, going back decades, which is that there's no such thing as trash. Oh, it's all subjective. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And I want to just gently, in a very friendly way, I want to assert here at the beginning of Garbaugust that is not true. A person might be compelled mindlessly to buy one shoe of a pair, but they will never use it. It is trash. It doesn't have its other part to it. A person may buy a badly broken... The shards of the ceramic at the base of that lamp were not only broken, but sharp. It would be dangerous to have it in your house. They got it, but they're not going to use it. They're going to throw it away. Plenty of the stuff that's on the sidewalk on Trash Day is just trash. It's not anything that anyone would take. It's people throwing away chairs that are broken, tables that don't stand, kitchenware that is corroded or covered in slime or whatnot that cannot be removed. Garbaugust is the only booktube event I know of where there is a question hanging in the air as to whether or not the subject of that event even exists at all. So I like to give this preliminary lecture about how there is such a thing as trash. There are bad books. It is not all subjective. It is not all just your opinion, man. It is not one man's trash is another man's treasure. Actually, the last part might be true. You can treasure anything you want. But trash doesn't become treasure because you do. In all the broad spectrum of human creativity, we think this about nothing else other than books. I would argue that we absolutely do not think it about art or about contemporary poetry. I believe that in both those cases we have been bullied into pretending that we think there's something here. So you took a $300,000 Arts Council grant to stretch a canvas over a frame, varnish it blank, and hang it up. You literally didn't touch it at all. And you sold it for $30,000, and it hangs in the local contemporary art museum, and you're supposed to stand in front of it and go, oh, a genuine Corcoran. When it's trash. It's garbage. You're a fraud. I would argue that for painting and also for contemporary poetry, we just feel that we have the cognoscenti looking over our shoulder, and if we didn't feel that, we would ignore it. We would ignore the objects. We wouldn't think that they were anything. But with books, this is unbelievably prevalent. And I think I know why. Reading is such an intimate thing to do. We overlook it, or it tends to blur because those of us in this community do it all the time. Can't imagine our lives without it. We work side by side, cheek by jowl with people who very much can imagine their lives without it, but we can't. We can't imagine our lives without it. So we tend to forget how intimate it is. It's unbelievably personal. It's not just that books can change you. It's that they change their writers first. And that the experience that you're having with that book is a one-on-one experience with a writer who doesn't know you're there, maybe long dead. It's a weird phenomenon. I think one of the greatest phenomenons in the world. Naturally, I would think that since my life is entirely devoted to reading. But that quality, that intimate quality, I think is what leads people to get a little defensive about reading. That and one other quality that we'll get to. But that personal quality leads people to get defensive about reading. So they don't want to be told that something they just read is trash. Unless they also think it's trash. Otherwise, no. Especially if they liked it. There's way too many readers, not really in this neighborhood of BookTube, but way too many readers just are not aware enough of the fact that this conversation, this admonition, this admonitory note I'm giving you, is not about what you like and don't like at all. Anyone who tries to shame you about what you like and don't like is a snob. And you should ignore them completely. And if they're a friend of yours and they're trying to shame you about what you like and don't like, well, you might want to talk to them or even think about that friendship. But when it comes to books, you can like anything you want. And far from criticizing you for it, I'm going to want to hear more about it. But that's different from a critical estimation of the worth of the thing. Right? Plenty of us like things that are worthless. Steve says on the doorstep of what is it, 17,000 subscribers. Plenty of us like things that are worthless. The key is to just be okay with that. You were only here once. You're visibly older today than you were yesterday. In about 5 minutes, you're going to be dead. You should like as much as you can. And without any apologies to anybody, you don't owe any apologies to anybody about what you like. But too many people come out of liking something, a book, let's keep it to a book, and say, well, I like that, therefore it must be good. No. Who appointed you the Queen of Sheba? No. Just because that you liked it, excuse me, doesn't mean that it's good. All the other human endeavors have yardsticks by which we can judge whether or not they're good. Think about the Bolshoi Ballet. You've heard the orchestra strike up Swan Lake. And the lights have changed, and everyone's been called into their seats, and the audience is in a hush, and the curtain goes up. And the dancers start to file onto stage. Imagine if your friend Bob was one of those dancers. Is there a critic anywhere in the audience that wouldn't comment on him? Is there anyone in the audience who wouldn't notice him? Is there anyone in the audience who wouldn't be tempted to catcall him right in the middle of the performance? Why? Because he's objectively worse at what he's doing than all the trained professionals up on stage. That's why. No one in the audience watching that version of Swan Lake, before they all mobbed the theater to get their money back, no one watching that version of Swan Lake would say, well, he's just doing a different version of Swan Lake. No, he's doing a worse version. He's doing a worse version. You get up off the couch where you're watching this video and decide that you're going to run 26 miles in preparation for a marathon. You'll keel over after mile number 1, and you will flat out die after mile number 5. Is that a finished marathon? No. Is that a good marathon? No. No. It means you're not good at it. That's all. You haven't trained yourself to be good at it. And the results show. And that's true for every human endeavor, except we don't like it to be true for books. And the reason why, I think, is because with books, the liking and the estimating are so intricately intertwined. They're so much a part of each other. Whereas, if you're in the theater watching a heart bypass surgery, well, again, you're going to notice in an instant the difference between Dr. Snelling from Mass General and Bob, your cousin. You're going to notice in an instant. The patient's going to notice too, but you're going to notice in an instant that one is really good at what he's doing, the other has no idea what he's doing. One is doing a trashy job. That's true for books as well. And I just wanted to get this off my chest before I wholeheartedly engage in Garbaugust. Of course, I'm going to wholeheartedly engage in Garbaugust, but I would really of course, I'll take what I get. I'll take all the Garbaugust videos I could possibly see, but it will work my one good nerve when inevitably someone connected with Garbaugust will take, I don't even know, a science fiction movie adaptation novel written in a weekend from incomplete scripts by Greg Bear on a bender. They'll read it, and because they like the movie, or because they halfway enjoyed the book, I guess, will say, oh, no, that's good. I think it's actually good. No, it isn't actually good. No, it isn't. Nothing that we are reading for Garbaugust is actually good. And that's not society saying that. That's not snobs saying, oh, you're reading trash. Oh, no. No, there's an event called Garbaugust. It's about garbage. It's not about a phantom. It's not about an imaginary thing. It's certainly not about a product of snobbery. Some books are bad. Some books are very, very bad. Most books are. It's not the only exemption to all other human forms of endeavor. That all the rest of them, sure, we can look at it and say, oh, that's good and that's bad. But with books, no, that's not true. Plenty of books are bad. So, I mean, I think that now Garbaugust has its sea legs under it. It's an older and established event. It's incredibly popular on BookTube. I think by now we all sort of know what we're talking about. We sort of know the trash that we're talking about here. And I myself am going to make a very conscious effort not to talk about trash where there's any kind of serious disagreement. The last thing I want for Garbaugust is anything serious. I want to talk about trash. Just trash. I will probably cross that line a couple of times, but for instance, you've all brought up, a lot of you in my emails have brought up James Joyce's Ulysses. I think it's trash. I'm not going to talk about it on Garbaugust, obviously. I would think that would be obvious. I think it's trash, but there are plenty of people who can legitimately think it's not. But The Executioner number 42, Death. If you can read that and think that it's good, you are just being a contrarian. It isn't. It isn't good. And the reason that it's not good is because we can objectively measure what's good and what's bad in everything. Not just everything but fiction or nonfiction, but everything, including books. It touches on a tiny bit of a touchy part of this little lecture. Because, of course, if you acknowledge what I just said, which is that books can be objectively assessed for their worth, same as anything else, then you start to ask about James Joyce's Ulysses. You start to ask about William Faulkner, the subject of a scabrous BookTube event in August. You start to ask about, well, what about those disagreements? In other words, if you're saying that some books can be trash, well, who's to say? And the reason that gets touchy is because reading, like writing, we like to think is completely egalitarian. That when it comes to these two things, writing and reading, that we've been doing since we were children, there are no levels of skill. We need to decide writing for the minute, but when it comes to, or we need to decide reading for the minute. When it comes to writing, people can hit that note with me and I can dispel it in an instant. In just an instant. Because when you're praising the authors that you say you like, you're praising their writing. And you would never agree that your writing is as good as theirs. So you do admit there's a spectrum. And if you admit there's a spectrum, that means you admit there are ends of a spectrum. It's not hard to explode that kind of contention, that there's no such thing as the quality of judging writing. Writing is not an egalitarian skill. No learned skill is egalitarian. Everyone has different levels of skill at everything they learn. But it gets a little touchy because then you start to ask, well, okay, then who does the judging? And, well, you can kind of guess what one of my answers is going to be. Take it back to heart surgery. If Dr. Schnelling does an open heart bypass and your cousin Bob tries to, and you're watching, you're immediately going to say one of those is better than the other. Okay, fine. Great, that's easy. But what if Dr. Schnelling does that surgery and also Dr. Mead from the Mayo Clinic does it? Well, one of them is doing a better job than the other, but you're no longer qualified to say. But people who are experts in open heart surgery are qualified to say, and they will be able to say, and they'll be able to quantify it. He did a better job than he did. And we hesitate to say that such a thing could be true for reading, because if it's true for reading, then it would only follow that the people who are better at judging these things are the people who do more of that judging, who are experts in the process of judging the strengths and weaknesses of literature, which starts to look like Steve is setting up the argument in his own favor, and I don't mean it to look that way. So I will just back away from the border of this argument and get to the heart of it, which is that since we're all engaged in Garbaugust, since we're all enjoying Garbaugust, and we're going to have a wonderful trashy month together, it would be nice if we could all agree that some books are, in fact, garbage. That this event is, in fact, about something, and not just about grades of judgment. Okay? You may have paid $70 for that mint-condition mass-market paperback of Alan Dean Foster's novelization of The Thing, but it's still bad. Anyway, oh my God, the fur is flying now. So I just wanted to do this throat clearing. I do this every year. This Garbaugust is not an event about nothing. Books are not the only exception to whether or not we can judge the quality of something. Some books are garbage. Now that I have cleared my mind, got that off my chest, I'm going to happily discuss garbage for the rest of the month, starting tomorrow. So we'll wrap this up for now. I'll see you all then. Oh my God. Thank you, BookTube.